Well, look at some of the cases dropped by the government's consumer protection watchdog under Trump. Now, you'll recall during the Obama administration, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, was created at the insistence of Senator Elizabeth Warren. And the CFPB has recovered billions, well over 10 billion. I forget the exact number, but there's billions and billions of dollars that have been basically ripped off from us. You know, for example, when Wells Fargo was just like suddenly creating new accounts and you didn't even ask for it. Suddenly you had a new savings account, right, with no balance, but they're charging you $25 a month for it or whatever. And, you know, they recovered millions, I think it might be billions of dollars, over and over and over again. So Trump comes in and they try to shut the thing down. They haven't succeeded in quite shutting it down yet. So instead what they're doing is they've basically stacked it. They've fired, you know, the good people, and they've put in a bunch of Trump toadies at CFPB. And here's what they've done so far. The Navy Federal Credit Union. Now, this is the nation's largest credit union. And it was accused by CFPB of having deceptive overdraft fee practices. And they confessed. They said, yeah, okay, we did it. We were ripping people off. And they promised to pay back $80 million to their customers. And the CFPB just dropped the case and said, no, you don't have to pay back the money. It's just, here's another one. The CFPB proposed new regulations for all banks in America that would have reduced overdraft fees. They average $27 per bounced check right now, or overdraft. That would have reduced that down to $5, because the actual cost to the bank of a bounced check is around $2. So they said, you know, $5 you can make some money instead of $27. Those regulations were just overturned by a Republican-controlled Congress in April. Capital One. CFPB sued banking giant Capital One for allegedly cheating its customers out of $2 billion in interest payments that were not made for their savings accounts. The case was dropped within days of the Trump administration taking over the bureau. This is, by the way, from the Associated Press. And Walmart. The CFPB filed a lawsuit in December against Walmart and the workforce company Branch Messenger, saying that they were deceptively steering delivery drivers to open accounts with Branch in order to get instant access to their wages. However, the CFPB said these Branch accounts came with high fees and deceptive marketing, and that Walmart and Branch should return $10 million to the harmed drivers. The lawsuit was dropped by the CFPB in the first weeks of the Trump administration. And then there's Zelle, you know, the peer-to-peer payment system. All the big banks now have signed on to it. They were sued by CFPB last year over accusations that they failed to protect hundreds of thousands of consumers from rampant fraud on Zelle in violation of consumer finance laws. They say that the consumers lost an estimated $870 million to fraud on Zelle, and CFPB dropped that lawsuit in March under Trump. So, hey, if you're a fraudster, now is a great time to be in business. And, of course, then there's the massive fraud that's just constantly going on of sending messages to people's phones, text messages, that you know, look like they're from a politician you love, that look like they're from Bernie Sanders, or look like they're from Gavin Newsom, or look like it, when in fact they're not. And they, you know, and they go to some site that looks like it has the word Democrat or Democratic or blue or something in the URL, but actually it's some bank in the Philippines, and you just, you know, they're just hoovering up people's money. Never, ever, ever give money to or respond to or click on a link that you get in a text message from somebody you don't know. Never. Don't ever do that. And finally, this is from Sarah Kaplan writing for the Washington Post. This is an eye-popper. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration was developing a tool to help communities prepare for future rainfall. Trump officials stopped it. She writes, the Commerce Department has indefinitely suspended work on a tool to help communities predict how rising global temperatures will alter the frequency of extreme rainfall. Get this? After all these people just died, all these children just died down in Texas. And New York. We had a couple of people die in New York from flash flooding last week. This is part of their Atlas 15 project. This is a massive data set. See, the problem is right now, a lot of weather bureaus around the country, many parts of the country, are relying on, quote, decades-old data to determine their rainfall risks, end quote. And there's no authoritative national data set. And NOAA was creating one so that you could say, okay, I live here, what's the risk of, a flash flood here? But because that had something to do with acknowledging the reality of global warming, and the fossil fuel billionaires don't like that talked about, and the Trump administration says that global warming is a hoax, right? Oh, it's just a hoax. They're shutting down anything that has to do with global warming, including this stuff. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, ordered a review of this, basically a shutdown. They go on to note, meanwhile, the toll of intensifying storms is becoming increasingly apparent. In the first 15 days of July, the National Weather Service has reported twice the usual number of flash floods, including the one in Texas that killed so many people, and the one in New Jersey. And this review of, this basically shutting down this program is, quote, among a number of efforts by the Trump administration to curb climate science. President Donald Trump proposed zeroing out funding for NOAA's climate research and eliminating many of the agency's laboratories and institutes. Scientists have found that 20% of the U.S. has already seen a fourfold increase. It's a 400% increase, right? A fourfold increase in the likelihood of a 100-year rainfall event. So I don't know how you do the math on the likelihood of 100-year rainfall events, but it seems like that means the 100-year event becomes every 25 years. I could be wrong. I mean, I'm not a statistician, but amazing stuff.